Hello everyone, this is Juan for OneSource.com, and today I'm going to be doing a video article on DECPL mill. And the reason I'm doing this is because I really haven't had any mill content on the site thus far, mainly because I haven't played in any matches on mill, because I haven't played in Cal for the last several seasons, but I did see that mill is still a map used in Cal, so I'd like to cover it for you guys. And I actually did play a match this last weekend on Mill. However, it was just for a local tournament. It was just kind of pretty much Pug team versus Pug team, so it really wasn't worth going over. However, I would like to talk about in this video article pretty much the differences between Tuscan and Mill, since I have covered Tuscan pretty much in depth. And I hope you guys have a good feeling for that map now. However, there's a lot of subtle differences on this map that I'd like to go over and kind of show you what changes you need to make, setup changes, as well as kind of how the dynamics of the map are going to affect your strats on T side. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And first off, I'm going to be talking about CT side and how you're going to adjust your setup here. So the first pretty much obvious difference to this map is this stair area. It's considerably different than the B site on Tuscan. Now there's only one choke point coming up to the stairs here, and so I feel that the way that my teams have always set up on this map is we've pretty much have had one guy pretty much dedicating to these stairs, you know, opping down, either playing right here or playing up there. But we never really dedicated more than one guy here. Unlike kind of on Tuscan, where you had one guy at the banana area and then one guy at the short, because imagine this would be short, and instead of this grate being here, it's pretty much open and they could come up this way. And they had two choke points to enter to. However, on this map you only have one, so I feel that it's kind of a waste to have two guys here. And you should pretty much be soloing this, using these boxes, using this whole area, using these back hauls, pretty much using it with an op, and just soloing it. And instead of having a second guy dedicated to this area, have him just come up early in the round and assist with the rush. I used to play this spot pretty often. I would come up, and Nick Knight would be my opper here. He'd be opping down. Occasionally we'd get aggressive, but most of the time he'd just kind of post up right there. He'd find a spot, and I would assist him early in the round by just posting up by this grate, seeing if there was a rush, and then I would rotate back. And then I would rotate back, and we really like putting two guys on middle. So I would be kind of the left mid player, and then we would have a right mid player. Occasionally he would play back in CT spawn, occasionally he'd play on those boxes, occasionally play right here, or occasionally play in the site with a rifle just kind of looking towards here. But the whole goal is we had two guys pretty much, for the most part, dedicated on mid. And then we had another two guys dedicated on kitty. And so there's one thing that you may notice here, is that we didn't have a player watching pretty much a sewer entrance, and I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But like I said, I think the reason why we're playing 2 mid is because I think it's a lot more difficult to hold mid on Mill than it is on Tuscan, and it's a lot easier to hold this stair entranceway on Mill than it is on Tuscan. And the reasons for why it's so much harder to hold mid is because, well, first off, these boxes are different. You can't just sit on these corners of these boxes and have an immediate advantage. They can see you right here, as opposed to on Tuscan, right here you could post up and you could see their feet and they couldn't see you. So that's one thing immediately bad about middle. You know, it's not quite as easy to hold from those boxes. You pretty much are forced to play on an angle. On Tuscan, you know, half the time I'd just sit on these boxes and I would see guys running out. I could see their feet. I'd spray them down, and it's just easy kills without them seeing me. Now I can't do that, so that's one less option I have in middle here. The other reason why it's easier is because it's kind of difficult for a CT player to play in this area, as opposed to on Tuscan, where I think on Tuscan you have a little kind of doorway right here that you can hide in, you can use to block flashes. You can post up an opper towards kitty or whatever. Excuse me, but the point is there's a guy right here that is very safe on Tuscan, and on Mill that's just not the case. There's really not nowhere he can go. I mean, obviously he can drop back to CT spawn, but you know, one smoke or one flash in this direction he's going to be very ineffective, and so you know, he can't just run out through the smoke here because he's just going to get shot from guys post up in middle. So that, you know, that's another option taken away from this guy. I mean, this guy is forced to just pretty much just random peek these angles and use his flashes, which isn't, you know, that great of an option. As opposed to Tuscan. And also, I mean, this guy has to be worried about his grate too. If his teammate's not watching aggressively down, a guy can just walk up his grate, and if he's not careful, you know, all the time, he can just walk back, you know, and get shot from that grate. Excuse me. And so that, you know, that's another thing he has to worry about. And you know, it's just that this isn't a great spot either. You know, if you have to have, even if you have a crossfire, guys right here, they're just going to get blind so easy. And so, you know, it's much more difficult to hold middle. So that's why I say that you need to dedicate 2 guys to middle. And so the way that's going to affect the rest of the parts of the map is obviously this guy's going to be playing solo, but these guys can be playing, and most of the time they're going to need to be playing aggressive on Kitty. Because middle's so hard to hold that they can't always expect him to hold it, you know, purely aggressively without letting him up. So most of the time, Kitty's going to need to be aggressive. And I'm going to talk about the sewer more later, but I think the sewer is less effective on Mill than it is on Tuscan at this site. At the other site, it's obviously a different story since there is no sewer on Tuscan at the 2 site, B site, whatever. But I simply think that, you know, having to come up here, having to break that, and then come upwards, you know, sometimes you can get some good flashes off right here. But, I mean, your timing needs to be near perfect in order for a sewer guy to be effective. Now, that doesn't mean you should never send a guy sewer. I think maybe it's a good thing to maybe start off with a guy sewer just so that they're worried about it later in the half, even if it doesn't work. Just to have that presence there for, you know, always making them think that you could possibly going there. That's a good thing. But, you know, just having to come up this ladder very slowly, pop up, be midair for a couple seconds is just seems very sluggish to me, and you're not going to be able to do much. However, I want to go back to talking about the stair site, and you'll notice before when I was talking about setup, having this guy solo, nobody was watching that sewer. And, you know, obviously it's a squeaky door, so you're going to be able to hear it. But you don't want to dedicate a guy to playing in the site to having to watch that sewer door. So what I like to do as CTs here is I like to get in the setup that I talked about earlier. Then later in the round, at about 1 minute, I think 105 exactly, is if they run the whole way, that's at 105 they can get there. So at that time, what I do is I tell my teammate to kind of shift over into the site, and you know, if I'm playing this mid guy, I'm gonna shift over and help grade a little bit more, and maybe tell the other player mid to be a little bit more aggressive and peek down. But so I'm gonna tell this player he's gonna shift over here, and he's gonna have to worry about both areas now. At 1 minute, and I'm going to talk about how this affects your T-side strats also later on. But you know, if you have to drop right here, and then you could just listen for squeaky, and then just work this corner, work that angle right there, and you know, cover that sewer. So at about 1 minute is the magic number, is when you want to kind of shift your setup over to being wary about that sewer. So that's kind of what I want to talk about on CT side. Now I want to talk about what kind of strats you can run based off that knowledge of what's more difficult to hold and that knowledge of sewers. So first off, let me get some guns here. Nades. You want to be smoky at mid a lot like you do on Tuscan. Now, you know, I've talked about, and in a video article we talked about a one-way smoke. The same thing applies here in middle, and I think if you're working middle solo, this is a great smoke to have. If you just sit in it, see, look at how well I can see this. I can see this near perfect, and see all they see is a big black cloud. So, you know, getting up here and working this, you know, it's absolutely essential that you have a single smoke down. Now, occasionally, you know, if they get used to that fact, obviously you want to switch that up and maybe just walk up or post up and up. And that's also something that you can throw a fake off of. I've talked about T-side setups, and if you have that smoke down the middle every round, and you've been going in it, you can easily throw a fake off of that too. But that's another point. But anyhow, so having this middle smoke is very important. What I generally do is I set up my teams as kind of a 2-3. We usually have an opper watch the stairs here, have an AKer this way, make sure pushes are watched, and have the other 3 go up that way. But when I'm usually working at middle, and occasionally I'll meet up with someone in this connector right here, is that I'll single smoke off this middle, wait for it to puff up, and then once it's up, start walking up right here, meet up with a teammate. And once you get up to this point, you obviously do clears on the boxes as much as you can. But once you get up to this point, I think it's an easy take if you guys can just get cross-fired flashes off. If you can flash one that direction and one that direction, just if you can time it right. Now sometimes that's difficult because you're out in the open, so you obviously want to have an op covering you when you're doing those flashes. But if you can get 2 flashes off and time it really well with a guy cross-firing with you, you guys just double flash, go turn the corner, just run up with your flash, turn your back to it, and get up into the site. I think that's so difficult to stop. As CTs, because honestly, what are you gonna do? I mean, you as CTs, the solution to that, the way you beat that is just by random peeking, and you're pretty much gonna have to just get lucky and time it right, use your sound, and that just comes from experience. But if a team isn't peeking very well down this middle, and they're giving you it. And you're just working really well, if they're pinned back on these corners, this is their last option. If they're not random peeking mid, they're going to be pinned back on these corners or on these boxes, and those flashes are just going to rape them. So, you could just run up right around this corner, and flashes pop, just turn that corner. And obviously you're going to be singing that with Kitty, and Kitty guys are going to want to come up at that time. But, I've done this so often, I just get kills on guys in the site looking towards Kitty, or guys on the sewer box looking towards Kitty. It's just so easy to do, and I think that's a staple to how you should be running your T-sides. Just, exploding up middle, not using much noise, walking up, getting in position, because like I said, really the only solution to this is random peeking. But if they don't see you coming, if they don't hear you coming, it makes it a lot more difficult. So, don't make a lot of noise and walk through your smokes. But once you're up there, just flash and explode, get out. And I usually do this. Sometimes I do this by myself. Sometimes I do it with 1 or 2 other guys. But it's extremely effective. Another option would be is to smoke off this left side, and I've talked about this on Tuscan, is to maybe even double smoke off this left side. And what this does is it's kind of common to play like an opper right on this box, or an opper kind of spawn, just like in Tuscan. But if you double smoke out this area, it completely shuts that guy off, and it's going to isolate the guys in the site. And what that's going to do, if we have guys coming up Kitty, it's going to force guys to cross middle here through that smoke, and if they want to be able to help their teams. And some guys are going to do that. They're going to become impatient. They're going to cross right away, and get through that smoke to help their team. And so what you can do is send 4 guys up Kitty once you get those double smokes off. Excuse me, I have a cold. You could send 4 guys to Kitty, and then plow up that Kitty and just post up one opper right here, killing rotators. And I think that's another really effective option for middle. And so those are 2 staple strats that I like to use on this map. Another strat that I like to use, and especially on pistols, is taking advantage of the sewer. Now, I talked about this on the other side, and I said that you can get there at about 1 minute. And you can run this whole way. If the other team's playing, if they're not pushed down middle, if they're not pushed down Kitty, you can run this whole way, and they're not going to be able to hear you. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to run all the way up here, and like I said, on normal rules with a minute 45 round times, what I usually do is I get right here, and then I start walking, because if a guy is playing in the site, he could hear you at this point. But I run all the way here, and I'm going to get to the door at about 1:05 if the clock were actually running. Right now it's not. But like I said, 1:05 is the time. So occasionally what I like doing, especially on a pistol strat, is I like putting, on a pistol strat, I liked putting maybe a guy in middle and a guy on stairs, just pulling a little attention, and other 3 rush sewer. And when the sewer guys are ready, we just take 2 up Kitty, 3 up sewer, and I think that's a very difficult pistol to stop. But anyhow, like I said, 1 minute when you get there. So if you're hitting middle and kitty every round and you're being successful, throw a sewer strat in there once in a while. Like, like I said, just that pistol strat, you could also use on a gun round. Rush 3 sewer and just get them out right away. Likely they're not going to have more than one in the site. So, if they have one in the site, if you get to this door, and open that door, one posts up on this corner and one goes out, you can really take advantage of that. So another thing that keeping that in mind, that if you get to the sewers at 1 minute, a lot of times what you want to be doing is delaying your T-side strats, so that if you can, if you're gonna go and execute your strats at about 120 or something, they know that they don't have to worry about the sewer at the other site. That it's just not something they have to worry about, because it's impossible for you to be there at that time. But if they do a setup similar to what I was talking about, and when at about 1 minute you shift over and cover that sewer door at the 2 site, that's one more spot they have to worry about. So I think it's very important that on T side you learn to delay your strats, that you don't hit right off the bat. And not only is that a good thing to make them think about sewer, but this is also a very pushable map, and that's something I haven't said yet. But on Tuscan, you'll notice in a lot of my commentaries, we push this connector a lot on CT side, and we push downstairs, and we push down middle. It's a very pushable map, and that's definitely a good option to throw in there. And I've talked about how aggressive you can be, and how it pays off. And it doesn't quite pay off as much in longer round times, but it still can be a very good thing to throw in there to throw them off once in a while. And so, if you hold your spots until 1 minute, you can get push kills. You can just assure yourself that you're not going to get killed from aggressives. I like to hold right here, like I said, have an opera right here, and have 3 other guys in the SA1 here just holding. And so, if you wait down to 50 seconds, they have to worry about sewers. They have to worry about pretty much everywhere, and you sealed off the rushes, and then you can kind of come into your strat. But like I said, you don't always want to do that. Throw in some rushes, throw in some different timing. I've talked about that before. But yeah, that's a good idea. So, well, that's going to be it here talking about Mill. Again, if you guys have questions, post your comments. I'd love to talk about more Mill some more sometime. And I think it's a great map. So, that's going to be it, and I'll talk to you guys later.